Hey guys, tonight we are going to sneak into one of history's most misunderstood professions. We're diving deep into the world of the ninja, but probably not the one you're thinking of. Forget the Hollywood blockbusters, the rooftop sprints, and the almost magical smoke bomb disappearances. The reality was, well, a lot more mundane. Frankly, a lot more boring. You probably wouldn't have survived the first day, not because of a rival assassin's blade, but out of sheer tedium. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop a comment below and let me know what city you're in and what time it is. It's always fascinating to see where these stories are traveling to. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Close your eyes for a moment. Picture the classic image. You're clad head to toe in a jet black uniform. The fabric's often silent. A mask covers the lower half of your face, leaving only your intense, watchful eyes visible. A perfectly straight-bladed sword, a ninjutsu, is strapped to your back. You're crouched on the curved tile roof of a feudal lord's castle, the moonlight glinting off the polished wood of the silent courtyards below. Your mission, a swift, silent assassination. This is the image that has been sold to us for decades. The ultimate shadow warrior. Now, let's gently start to peel that fantasy away. First, that iconic black outfit. The Shinobi Shozoku. It looks great in a movie, but in reality, it's not the best camouflage. On a moonlit night, a pure black silhouette stands out against a dark blue or gray sky. A more practical choice, and what was likely yours, was a dark, unassuming navy blue, or even the browns and grays of a peasant's or monk's robes. Your goal isn't to look like a terrifying omen of death. Your goal is to not be seen at all, to blend in with the shadows, not become a moving piece of them. And that sword on your back, the straight-bladed ninjutsu, is almost certainly a 20th century invention, a piece of movie magic. If you carried a sword at all, it would have been the standard, curved katana of the era. But even that was often impractical. Your true value wasn't in your skill with a blade. In fact, a mainstream historical truth is that your primary job wasn't assassination. It was espionage. Your master, a powerful daimyo, a feudal lord, doesn't need another killer. He has samurai for that. Hundreds of them, all eager to die for him in glorious battle. What he needs is information. What's the enemy's food supply like? What's the morale of their troops? Which of their generals is disgruntled and could be bribed? Where are the weak points in their castle walls? An assassination might solve a problem for a day, but a single piece of crucial intelligence could win an entire war before the first arrow is even fired. That's where you come in. You are an intelligence asset, a spy. Your most valuable skills aren't flashy martial arts. They are the arts of deception, infiltration, and disguise. And this brings us to a slightly more obscure piece of knowledge. Your toolkit was less about violence and more about stealth. Forget the endless supply of throwing stars. You were more likely to carry a kajinawa, a simple grappling hook with a rope, for scaling walls. Or perhaps you did have a collection of listening devices. One of the simplest was just a thin metal tube to press against a wall, allowing you to hear conversations in the next room with greater clarity. Some historical texts even mention carrying a small box of crickets. Why? Because if you had to move through a silent building, releasing the crickets could create a natural-sounding ambient noise to help mask the sound of your own quiet footsteps. It's clever, but it's hardly the stuff of legends. The very idea of who you are is a source of debate. Historians still argue to this day whether ninja was a distinct class of hereditary warriors living in secret clans, or if ninjutsu, the collection of espionage skills, was simply a set of techniques employed by anyone who needed them. From disillusioned samurai to common foot soldiers or even monks, the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. But for you, sitting on this rooftop, the reality is beginning to sink in. Your job isn't to be a hero or a villain. It's to be a ghost. Your greatest achievement is for no one to ever know you were there at all. The glory, the epic duels, The dramatic last stands. That's for the samurai. For you, there is only the mission, the information, and the crushing, patient silence of the night. And as you contemplate this, another piece of the myth falls away in your mind. The very word you use to describe yourself, ninja, feels wrong. It sounds sharp, aggressive. A word for a comic book character. It doesn't fit the quiet, patient reality of your existence. You recall your trainer, a man with more scars on his hands from farming than from fighting, correcting you years ago. He told you that ninja is a modern, almost lazy, reading of the two kanji characters that define you, Ren and Zhou. It's the Chinese influence pronunciation, the Anyoi. It's short, punchy, and easy for outsiders to say. But it's not what you call yourselves. The proper term, the one you were taught to use, is Shinobi no Mono, or just Shinobi. It's the native Japanese reading, the Kunoichi. It feels softer, more subtle on the tongue. It carries a different weight. It's less a job title and more a description of a state of being. And this isn't just a linguistic curiosity. It's a core piece of your identity. The first character, Ren, which can be read as in, I-N or Shinobi, is the key to your entire philosophy. Let's look at that character for a moment. It's a beautiful, complex little picture. The top part of the character means blade or edge. The bottom part means heart. So, to be a shinobi is to live with a blade over your heart. This isn't a threat of violence from the outside. It's a constant, internal demand for control. It is the art of enduring, of persevering, of suppressing your own emotions and desires until they are as silent as your footsteps. It's the patience to sit still for hours, the fortitude to withstand cold and hunger, and the emotional strength to live a lie for years without breaking. That is the essence of NIN. To put a blade over your heart and still it's beating. To hide your true self so completely that even you sometimes forget who you are. This understanding also explains why the idea of a single, unified ninja clan is more fantasy than fact. A really interesting, and often overlooked, historical tidbit is that different regions and different lords had their own names for agents like you. In some places, you might be called a Rappa, which could be translated as ruffian or scoundrel, a far cry from the noble shadow warrior image. In other domains, you were known as Supa, transparent waves, implying you could move through enemy territory without leaving a ripple. Some were called Kuja, meaning grass, because you were expected to embed yourself in the landscape, becoming as common and unattainable as a blade of grass in a field, silently observing everything. The label changed depending on the employer and the specific function. This tells you something important. You are not a member of a secret, ancient order. You are a specialist, a tool, and your name is whatever the person who wields you decides to call you. This leads to a question that historians still debate quite fiercely. Was shinobi ever a formal class or a self-identified profession in the way samurai was? Or was it simply a descriptor for a set of skills? When a samurai lord hired you, a poor farmer with a knack for being unnoticed and a good memory, did you suddenly become a shinobi? Or were you just a farmer undertaking an act of shinobi? There likely wasn't an official application process or a union card. The lines were blurry. I samurai could employ shinobi techniques. Amo, whose vows of poverty and constant travel made for a perfect disguise, could act as an information gatherer. You are defined not by your birth or your rank, but by your function and your ability to live with that blade held ever present over your heart. So, you take a deep, slow breath. The cool night air feeling different now. You are not a ninja. You are a shinobi. You are not a killer. You are an instrument of patience and endurance. Your greatest weapon isn't a sword, but the quiet control you have over your own heart. And your training, which you now begin to recall in detail, wasn't about learning 1,000 ways to kill a man. It was about learning 1,000 ways to stay alive, unnoticed, and sane, while living a life of utter grinding and necessary boredom. It was about forging that blade and placing it carefully, permanently, within your own soul. That blade over your heart wasn't forged in a single, dramatic moment. It was painstakingly ground into shape over years of training that was, for the most part, crushingly dull. You remember thinking, as a boy, that you would learn to move like a shadow and fight like a demon. The reality was far less romantic. Your first and most important lesson was that if you ever had to draw a weapon, you had already failed. A true shinobi doesn't win fights. He avoids them entirely. A fight means you've been seen. It means your cover is blown. It means you have become the center of attention. The one thing your entire existence is trained to prevent. So, your training wasn't about combat. It was about disappearance. First came the physical conditioning, but not in the way you'd expect. You didn't spend your days practicing elaborate martial arts katas. You spent them running, and running, and running. Not for an hour, but for a day. Your master would send you out with a simple rice ball and a destination miles away, over mountains and through forests, with the instruction to be back by nightfall. This wasn't to make you a warrior. It was to make you an escape artist. It was to ensure that if you were ever discovered, you could outlast any pursuer. You learned to swim across icy rivers without a sound, not to ambush an enemy, but to cross a patrol route undetected. You learned to climb sheer rock faces with your bare hands, not to assault a fortress, but to find a vantage point no one else would think to look for. Your body became a tool of endurance, not of aggression. Then came the mental and sensory training, which was somehow even more grueling. You would be made to sit by a busy road for an entire day, and then be expected to recall the face of every merchant who passed, the color of their cart, the number of guards they had, and snippets of conversations you overheard. Failure meant doing it again the next day. You were taught to not just see, but to observe. You learned to differentiate the sounds of a dozen different kinds of birds, so you could recognize when one of them made a call of alarm because a human was passing nearby. You learned to identify different types of soil and vegetation, which could tell you if an army had passed through recently. One of the more esoteric, and frankly bizarre, parts of your training was learning how to become someone else. This wasn't just putting on a costume. If your assignment was to pose as a carpenter, you spent a year working as a carpenter's apprentice. You learned the feel of the wood, the specific ache in your back at the end of the day, the slang and gripes common to the trade. You had to become so thoroughly immersed in your role that your own identity became a distant memory. This is a cold, hard fact of your profession. You are a method actor whose final performance could mean the difference between life and death. This dedication to minutiae is where some of the more legendary, but misunderstood, skills came from. You've probably heard stories of ninja walking on water, or becoming invisible. Those are fables, but a lesser known, real training technique was learning to walk across a floor of laid-out rice paper without tearing it. It sounds impossible, but it's just a masterclass in balance and weight distribution. Learn it through thousands of hours of slow, agonizingly precise practice. It's about controlling your body so perfectly that you become lighter than you are. Not magic, just relentless, mind-numbing repetition. Now, where did this training happen? This is something historians still actively argue about. The most famous regions associated with Shinobi are Igi and Koga provinces. They were mountainous, remote, and difficult for central authorities to control, making them natural incubators for these kinds of covert skills. Popular culture imagines them as having secret villages with dedicated ninja academies, like a hidden military school. The historical reality is probably more subtle. It's unlikely there was a formal ninja academy with a sign out front. Instead, it's more likely that the skills of ninjutsu were developed and passed down within families and communities in these regions, much like a specialized local craft. A father would teach his son how to survive in the mountains, how to gather information, how to be less conspicuous. Over generations, these families became the go-to experts for lords who needed espionage services. You didn't enroll, you were born into it. So your training wasn't a montage of cool fight scenes. It was a long, slow process of emptying yourself out. You learned to suppress your ego, your fear, your comfort, and even your own name. You were being reshaped from a person into a function, a listening post, a pair of invisible eyes. The goal was to make you so good at being uninteresting that history itself would forget you were ever there. And now, with that training finally complete, you stand ready, not for glory, But for your first assignment, to become utterly and completely boring, there is no grand ceremony to mark the end of your training, no diploma, no speech from your daimyo lord. The summons comes as a whisper, a prearranged signal you've been waiting for. A single, black feather left on the railing of a small bridge you cross every day. It means tonight you feel a knot tighten in your stomach. But it's not excitement, it's a cold, heavy sense of finality. This is it, the end of practice, the beginning of the real thing. Your meeting is not in some secret underground chamber. It's in the corner of a noisy, smoky tavern in a town you've never visited before. Your handler, a man you know only as your chunin, or mid-level commander, is sitting at a table, looking for all the world like a weary traveling merchant nursing a cup of cheap sake. He doesn't look at you as you enter. You simply take a seat at the adjacent table, your back to his, and wait. The noise of the tavern provides perfect cover. The persimmons are bitter this year, he says, his voice low and flat, not even turning his head. It's the code phrase, but the rice harvest will be good. You reply, your own voice a stranger's mumble. He begins to speak. There are no maps unfurled on the table, no dramatic pronouncements. His words are clipped, precise. He tells you of a village named Ochiba, nestled in a valley just a day's walk from the fortress of an enemy lord. It's a strategically unimportant place. The people there are simple farmers and woodcutters. No one would ever think to place a spy there. And that is precisely why you are going. Your mission is not to infiltrate the castle. It's to become a part of the village. Your job is to live there, to work there, and to listen. You are to be a living scarecrow, motionless in the fields, but seeing everything. You'll watch the road for supply convoys, count the soldiers in passing patrols, and note the seasons by the readiness of the Lord's army. The time frame for this mission, until it is done, your handler says, it could be 6 months, it could be 6 years. This is the reality of your first job. It is an assignment of infinite patience. This is a primary historical truth about your kind. The most effective shinobi operations were long-term, deep cover infantilism that valued information gathering far above sabotage or assassination. You are a long-term investment, a seed being planted in enemy soil that may not bear fruit for a very long time. You look at the back of your handler's head, at his worn-out robes. You wonder about his rank. This title of Shonin, popular stories decades from now, will speak of a clear hierarchy. The Jonin, the high-ranking masters who took orders directly from the Lord. The Chunin, the mid-level leaders like him who organized missions. And the Genin, the field agents, like you. But historians will forever debate if this rigid structure was real, or if it was an invention of a later, more peaceful era to codify and romanticize your shadowy world. Right now, it doesn't matter to you if he is a general or just a manager. He holds your life in his hands. He slides a small, cloth-wrapped bundle along the floor with his foot until it touches yours. You discreetly pull it towards you. Later, in the privacy of a cheap inn room, you open it. There won't be a sword or a vial of poison. Inside will be a set of peasant's clothes, worn and patched in just the right way. There will be a few coins, minted in the province you are heading to, and there will be a tiny, unassuming bag. Inside are grains of rice, dyed in 5 different colors: red, blue, yellow, black, and purple. This is a rather obscure to love your trade known as Goshiki Mai. It's a beautifully simple communication system. A few scattered blue grains by a milestone might mean all clear. A yellow grain, placed on a shrine railing, could mean have information, await contact. It's a silent, edible, and utterly deniable way to leave a message that only another shinobi would understand. Your grand send-off into the world of espionage is a handful of colored rice. Back in the tavern, the handler stands up, pays for his drink, and walks out without a second glance. The meeting is over. There are no words of encouragement, no good luck. Your training has prepared you for this isolation. You are no longer part of a clan or a team. You are a single, disconnected piece on a board, moved into position. Use it for a few more minutes. Finish your own cold tea, and then step out into the night. You don't head back the way you came. You turn your face towards a new direction, towards the village of Ochiba. The first day of your new job is simply a long, lonely walk down a dark road. Your mind already racing, trying to shed your own skin and stitch together the new one you will have to wear for the rest of your foreseeable life. You don't walk straight into the village of Ochiba. That would be foolish. For the first 2 days, you don't go near it at all. You remain hidden in the dense forest that lines the valley. Observing from a high ridge, you watch the sun rise and trace the paths the smoke from their morning fires makes in the sky. You watch the farmers, tiny figures from this distance, moving slowly through the fields. You listen to the distant clang of a blacksmith's hammer and the faint shouts of children. You are memorizing the rhythm of the place before you even set foot in it. This is your new world, and you need to understand its pulse before you try to join its circulation. While you watch, you are not just waiting. You are actively shedding the last remnants of your old self and building your new one from the ground up. Your name, you decide, is Kenji. It's a common, forgettable name. Your backstory is simple, tragic, and impossible to verify. You are a second son from a village to provinces over, a place ravaged by a flood last year. Your family was lost. You have been wandering ever since, looking for any kind of work to keep from starving. It's a story that will evoke pity, but not suspicion. It's a story that makes you an outsider, which is perfect. No one expects an outsider to know all the local customs. Your mistakes will be seen as ignorance, not deception. The clothes you were given are a good start, but it's the details that sow the lie. You take the clean, sturdy walking sandals you wore on your journey and scuff them in the dirt, fraying the edges with a sharp stone. You rub dust and grime into the knees and elbows of your peasant wear, but the most important detail is your hands. They are too smooth, too capable. They are the hands of a trained man, not a laborer. This is a fatal flaw. So you begin the painful process of forging a farmer's hands. You find a patch of coarse, and by a stream and you scoop it up, grinding it into your palms until they are ridden dry. You grip rough bark trees, deliberately scraping your knuckles. You find sharp-edged rocks and run them along your fingertips. It's a strange, inverted form of self-harm, designed not to destroy, but to create, to build the one credential no one can question, a lifetime of hard labor, condensed into a few agonizing days. This is a little-known, brutal reality of deep-cover work. Your body itself must become part of the disguise, while your mind is building a history of loss and wandering. Your hands are building a history of toil. As you do this, you ponder a darker question, a topic your trainers alluded to but never confirmed, something that historians will argue over for centuries. Did you just invent Kenji, or did your clan arrange for the real Kenji? A lone traveler who happened to match your general description, to have an unfortunate accident on a lonely mountain pass a few weeks ago. Did they find him, learn his story, and then remove him from the board so you could take his place? It's a ruthlessly efficient strategy. Taking over a real, documented identity is far more secure than inventing one. But the evidence for such practices is almost non-existent, confined to whispers and speculation. It's a chilling thought. You push it away. You are Kenji. That's all that matters now. On the third day, your hands now a tender, blistering mess that will eventually harden into convincing colossus. You are ready. You walk out of the forest, not with the confident stride of a warrior, but with the weary, shuffling gait of a man who has known nothing but defeat. You keep your eyes downcast, projecting humility and exhaustion. You enter the village. It smells of wood smoke, damp earth, and livestock. A woman washing clothes in a wooden tub looks up at you, her expression blank, and then looks away. A group of children stop their game to stare for a moment before one of them shouts and they resume their play. You are a stone dropped into a pond, and the ripples are small. This is good. Your goal is an abandoned hut you spotted from the ridge. It sits on the edge of the village, slightly apart from the others. Its thatch roof has a hole in it, and the mud walls are crumbling. It's perfect. It's the kind of place a destitute wanderer would gravitate towards. You don't claim it. You simply sit outside it, your back against the wall. And wait, you are not a threat. You are just a piece of human driftwood, washed up on their shore. Sooner or later, someone will come to ask who you are, and then the performance of your life will begin. It takes hours, but eventually, An old man approaches. He walks with a slight limp, leaning on a sturdy wooden staff, his face a roadmap of wrinkles. This is the village headman. You surmise. His eyes, they're old, are sharp. They take in your shabby clothes, your downcast gaze, and linger for a moment on your blistered, dirty hands. He asks your name, your story. You give him the well-rehearsed tale of Kenji, the flood survivor. Your voice is hoarse, your words spare. You don't overact. You just present a portrait of quiet desperation. He listens, silent and impassive. When you finish, he grunts. A strong back is always needed. He says, not with kindness, but with blunt pragmatism. He points with his staff to the dilapidated hut. You can have that place if you fix the roof. There's a plot of land behind it, long abandoned. If you can make anything grow, it's yours to eat. In exchange, you help in the communal fields when we need you. It's an offer, but it feels like a command. You bow, your head low, murmuring your thanks. And just like that, you have been absorbed into the village. Your new life has begun, and it is a life dictated not by mission reports and coded messages, but by the sun, the rain, and the mud. The first few weeks are a blur of relentless, back-breaking labor. Your days are no longer your own. They belong to a calendar that has ruled this valley for centuries. This is a fundamental truth of the world you've entered. The agricultural cycle is the only clock that matters. In the spring, it's planting. You spend days standing ankle-deep in cold, slimy water in the rice paddies, your back bent at an agonizing angle as you press the delicate green seedlings one by one into the mud. Your muscles, trained for explosive bursts of running and climbing, scream in protest at this slow, sustained agony. Summer brings the heat, the humidity, and the endless task of weeding. You pull them by hand, under the blazing sun, until your vision swims and the sweat stings your eyes. And this is where you encounter a particularly humbling and pungent reality of peasant life. Fertilizer. There's no store to buy it from. You make it. A rather pungent but fascinating little detail of historical agriculture is the use of night soil. This is a polite term for human and animal waste. Part of your job, as the village newcomer, is to help collect this precious resource, mix it with compost, and spread it on the fields. The smell is overwhelming. It clings to your clothes, your hair, your skin. It is the absolute antithesis of the silent, clean, mythical shadow warrior. You are no longer a phantom of the night. You are a man who spends his days covered in filth to ensure the village has enough to eat. Your cover is no longer just a story. It's a physical state of being. The calluses on your hands are no longer a painful fabrication. They are thick, hard, and real, earned through the splintered handle of a hoe and the rough weight of stones you carry to mend a wall. You learn the difference between the ache of exhaustion, which is constant, and the ache of injury, which you must avoid at all costs. A sprained ankle isn't a minor inconvenience. It's a disaster that could make you useless and therefore suspicious. During all this, you wonder about support. It's a point that historians will likely debate forever. How were agents like you actually sustained? Were you expected to live entirely off the land, a truly self-sufficient operative? Or was there a logistics network, a system for slipping you funds or supplies? Did your handler, the merchant from the tavern, have a budget for this operation? Or did your daimyo lord simply point you at the target and expect you to figure out the rest? You have no idea. You were given a few coins to start, but those are long gone, spent on a little bit of salt in the cooking pot. For now, you must assume you are completely on your own. Your survival depends not on your skills in espionage, but on your ability to coax a few miserable vegetables from your wretched little patch of land. At night, you don't sneak out to practice your martial arts. You fall onto your straw pallet in your now patched hut, too tired to even dream. The pain in your back is a constant companion. The blade over your heart feels very far away. It's been replaced by the dull, throbbing ache in your muscles. You are not a shinobi waiting for a signal. You are a farmer, waiting for the rain. And as you drift off to sleep, listening to the crickets that you once might have used for cover, you have a terrifying thought. What if you become so good at this role that you forget you're even playing one? The days bleed into one another, each defined by a new ache, a new layer of grind. And in the midst of this grindy repetition, you begin to form a relationship with your tools. They are your constant companions, more familiar to you now than the face you left behind. In particular, the Kama, the simple hand sickle. It has a short wooden handle that now fits perfectly into the coil-used groove of your palm, and a curved blade, sharp on the inside edge. All day, you use it for its intended purpose, cutting bundles of grass for animal feed, trimming weeds from the edges of the rice paddies, and eventually, harvesting grain. The motion is a rhythmic flick of the wrist, a repetitive arc that becomes as natural as breathing. One afternoon, as you're clearing an overgrown patch of land near your hut, you pause to wipe the sweat from your brow. You look at the sickle in your hand, and it hits you. You have not held a sword in over a year. The thought is so sudden it almost makes you laugh. All your formal training with the blade, all those spent on stances and strikes, feel like they belong to another man's life. This simple, shape, functional tool is the weapon you have spent hundreds of hours with. You are more proficient with this farmer's sickle than you ever were with a samurai's katana. This is a core tenet of your craft, a fundamental truth that separates you from the warriors you are spying on. A samurai's weapon is a symbol of his status. It is long, beautiful, and instantly recognizable. It is designed for the battlefield, for duels, for glory. Your weapons are designed to be ignored. You remember a lesson from your master. He didn't drill you endlessly with swordplay. One day, he simply handed you a sickle and told you to clear a thorny hedge. Only after hours of frustrating, painful work did he show you how the same tool, with a slight change in grip and intention, could be used to hook an opponent's ankle, to slash a wrist, or to disarm them. The lesson was clear. Mastery comes from use, not from posturing. This philosophy extends to other tools. You've seen drawings and heard stories of the kunai, often depicted as a heavy, leaf-shaped throwing dagger. But you know the truth, a small piece of obscure knowledge that separates practitioners from fantasistas. The kunai was not primarily a weapon. It was a multi-purpose gardening and masonry tool, shaped like a trowel. You could dig with it, pry stones loose, or hammer in pitons for climbing. It was heavy and tough. Could you throw it? Yes, in the same way you could throw a rock or a hammer. But its true value was that it was an utterly plausible item for a commoner or laborer to carry. It was a tool that could be a weapon, not the other way around. No samurai would ever question a man carrying a trowel. This leads to a question that scholars of warfare will argue about for centuries to come. Which came first, the tool or the technique? Did resourceful peasants, banned from owning swords, develop a martial art around their sickles, chains, and staffs out of self-defense, a system later adopted by Shinobi for its covert nature? Or did Shinobi, needing to blend in, deliberately choose to master common farm tools as a form of disguised weaponry? The historical record is hazy, filled with folklore and conflicting accounts. The truth is likely a messy combination of both. You, Kenji the farmer, don't care about the academic debate. You only know that the weight of the sickle in your hand feels right. It feels practical. Now, your trained eye sees potential everywhere. DeLong, heavy staff you carved for yourself to make walking on the muddy paths easier is no longer just a walking stick. It's a bow, capable of blocking, striking, and keeping an enemy out of distance. The wood axe you use to split firewood has a perfect, devastating weight and balance. Even a simple rake could be used to blind or disable an attacker. Your world has become a collection of improvised weapons. This constant, low-level analysis is part of the blade held over your heart. It is a state of perpetual readiness, hidden beneath a veneer of utter normalcy. You are a farmer. You think about the rain, the soil, the coming harvest. But a part of your mind, a quiet, watchful passenger, is always assessing. That man walking towards you, how far away is he? What is his posture? What is in his hands? The distance to the tree line could you make it if you had to run? It's not paranoia. It's a habit. A reflex as ingrained as the flick of your wrist when you swing the kama. It is the art of being simultaneously present in your false life and prepared for the violent end of it. The sickle is no longer just a tool for harvesting rice. It's a tool for harvesting secrets. And, if necessary, lies. And its simple, curved blade is a constant, cold reminder of the two men you must be at once. The seasons turn. The frantic energy of the harvest gives way to the slower, deeper rhythm of late autumn. The work changes. It's no longer about planting or weeding. It's about repair, preparation, and community. The men gather to wreath at a neighbor's roof. The women work together, pickling vegetables and salting fish for the long winter ahead. The air grows crisp. For you, this shift brings a new opportunity. Your primary mission was never to become the village's best farmer. It was to become its best listener. You find a new purpose for yourself, a new role that places you at the very heart of the village's information network. The village entrance. It's not an official gate, just the point where the main path widens as it enters the cluster of huts. There's a small, weathered stone statue of Jizo, a guardian deity for travelers and children, standing under a scraggly pine tree. You make it your business to tend to this spot. You clear the weeds around the statue. You reinforce the small, rickety fence that separates the path from the first field. You sweep the fallen pine needles. You are Kenji, the quiet, grateful newcomer, showing his respect and earning his keep through humble, helpful acts. But your real work is listening. This spot is the village's unofficial news station. It's the place where information arrives and departs. In the morning, you watch the women pass on their way to the fields or the river, exchanging news about their families. In the afternoon, you see the men return, talking of the day's work. Children run past, their shouts and games sometimes containing echoes of their parents' conversations. Most importantly, this is where any outsider, a traveling peddler, a wandering monk, a samurai patrol must pass. You become a fixture, a piece of the scenery. People nod to you. The quiet man Kenji, always busy with his hands. And then they turn to their companions and continue their conversations, forgetting you are there. And you listen. This is the central, unglamorous truth of your profession. Intelligence in this era isn't stolen from locked safes. It's gathered from the air. It's woven from the threads of idle chatter and careless complaints. 99% of what you hear is noise. You hear about old man Tanaka's bad knee, the affair between the miller's wife and a charcoal burner, and endless debates about whether the coming winter will be mild or harsh. You must listen to it all with the same placid, non-committal expression. Your mind, however, is a fine-toothed sieve. Then, one day, you hear it. A single grain of signal in the mountain of noise. Two men are walking back from the forest, complaining about the extra work. Another patrol came through this morning. One grumbles. The third one this week said they were looking for bandits, but they seemed more interested in mapping the old logging trails. Your hands don't stop weeding. Your expression doesn't change, but inside, a gear turns, increased patrols, and interest in terrain. You file it away. A week later, a merchant stops to rest his horse near your spot. He's complaining to a local about the new tax. The Lord Steward in the castle town is buying up every bit of iron he can get his hands on. The merchant says the price has doubled in a month. Another gear turns. Iron is for weapons and armor. The challenge, of course, is how to remember all this without raising suspicion. You cannot write anything down. A piece of paper with notes on patrol schedules and iron prices would be a death sentence. So you rely on memory, aided by a simple, secret system. This is a strange, niche technique of your trade, a form of deniable record-keeping. At night, in the privacy of your hut, you have a long piece of simple twine. You tie knots in it. A simple overhand, not for each patrol. You use a different section of the string for different types of information. A double knot for rumors about food supplies. A slip-end for news about troop movements. It's your secret ledger. It means nothing to anyone else. To you, it is a detailed intelligence report, encoded in the bumps and loops of a common piece of string. Yet, as you tie another knot, a cold thought surfaces. It's a question that historians of your time will argue endlessly. How much did this low-level intelligence actually matter? Did a powerful daimyo, surrounded by his samurai advisors and high-ranking generals. Truly base his grand strategy on the ramblings of a peddler, filtered through a peasant farmer in a forgotten village. Some scholars will argue that this grassroots intelligence was the absolute bedrock of successful campaigns, providing a real-time picture of the enemy's readiness that no high-level spy could ever hope to obtain. Others will contend that it was mostly unreliable noise, that lords relied far more on samurai spies, official reports, and the betrayal of enemy retainers. You don't know the answer. You can only do your job, collecting these tiny grains of information and hoping that, when pieced together, they form a picture that will be of some use to the man who sent you here. You are a human gossip column, patiently curating the mundane reality of your enemies, praying that it contains the secret to their downfall. The first winter is the hardest. The work in the field stops. But a new kind of labor begins, the labor of survival. The cold seeps through the patched walls of your hut, a constant, biting presence. Your world shrinks to the size of this small, smoky room, and the endless task of trying to stay warm. Food, which was merely fuel during the harvest, now becomes a source of constant, low-grade anxiety. You carefully ration your small store of pickled vegetables and dried fish. Every grain of rice is precious. You learn the particular ache of a stomach that is never quite full. But the physical hardship is nothing compared to the mental strain. The village turns inward. The communal activities dwindle. Families huddle together in their homes. And your carefully constructed routine of listening at the village gate is gone. There are no travelers, no patrols, no groups of villagers to observe. There is only silence, broken by the howling of the wind, and with the silence comes the waiting. A deep, profound, and corrosive waiting. You have been an Ochiba for nearly a year. You have meticulously gathered your scraps of information, tying knots in your secret twine until it's a lumpy, complicated record of the valley's mundane life. You have left the subtle signals a colored grain of rice, a carefully placed stone at the pre-arranged drop points in the forest. But there has been no response, no contact from your handler, no new instructions, nothing. This is the true test of the blade over your heart. It's not about enduring pain or fear. It's about enduring nothingness. It's about maintaining your focus, your discipline, and your sanity when it feels like your mission and you yourself have been completely forgotten. You are a tool left in the field, slowly rusting, waiting for a hand that may never come to pick you up again. Every day, you must fight the creeping sense of futility. You wake up in the cold dark and force yourself to be Kenji. You check your snares in the woods, hoping for a rabbit. You mend your clothes. You reinforce the walls of your hut with a mixture of mud and straw. You perform the role of a diligent peasant for an audience of no one. It is a performance in a vacuum. Doubt becomes your shadow. Was the information you gathered useless? Did you misread the signals? Did your handler get captured or killed? Or, the worst thought of all, was this mission just a test? A cruel, elaborate training exercise to see if you would break under the strain of isolation and pointlessness. This kind of prolonged, deep cover assignment is a known reality of your profession, but its psychological toll is something modern historians often underestimate. They analyze the tactics, the tools, the strategic impact, but the human cost is harder to quantify. The art of waiting is an active skill. It's a daily battle against your own mind. You have to shut down the part of you that craves purpose, that needs to see results. You have to find a strange kind of peace in the endless, repetitive cycle of survival. You find small ways to keep your shinobi skills sharp, exercises hidden within your daily chores. When you walk through the silent, snow-covered forest, you practice moving without leaving a trace, stepping on rocks and exposed roots to minimize your footprints. You sit motionless for an hour, watching a single spot, training your senses to notice the tiniest movement, the flick of a bird's tail, the sway of a branch. It feels foolish, like a child's game, but it's a lifeline. It's a way of reminding yourself that you are not just Kenji the starving farmer. You are a shinobi. You have a purpose, even if it is currently buried under a thick blanket of snow and silence. There are moments of weakness. One night, huddled by your tiny fire, the loneliness is a physical weight. You think about your real family, the faces you can barely remember. You think about your own name, which sounds foreign and strange in your mind. The urge to just walk away, to abandon this life of cold and hunger and become a real wanderer, is immense. But then you feel it. The phantom pressure of the blade over your heart. The discipline that was beaten, untrained into you for years. It holds you in place. It reminds you that your feelings do not matter. The mission matters, even if the mission is just to wait. And so you do. You wait. You endure the cold, the hunger, and the crushing silence. You learn that the greatest enemy you will ever face is not a samurai with a sword. It is the vast, empty expanse of time, and your only weapon against it is a quiet, stubborn, and almost inhuman patience. The winter finally breaks. The snow melts, turning the village paths into a thick, clinging mud. The first green shoots appear. The work starts again, and with it, the return of a routine that feels like a blessing after the stagnant silence of the cold months. But the loneliness doesn't entirely disappear. It just changes its shape. It's no longer the sharp, acute loneliness of isolation, but a dull, chronic ache that lies just beneath the surface of your Kenji persona. You are surrounded by people now. You work alongside them in the fields. You share a cup of sake with them after a long day. You nod and smile at their jokes. You have successfully integrated. You are no longer Kenji the newcomer. You are just Kenji. The villagers have accepted you. They talk to you freely. They ask for your help. They treat you as one of their own. And that is the problem. This acceptance is a more dangerous trap than any physical threat. Because a part of you, the part that isn't a shinobi, the part that is just a human being, craves it. It feels good when the village headman claps you on the shoulder and praises your hard work. It feels warm when a neighboring family shares their meager meal with you because they saw your fire wasn't lit. You find yourself genuinely liking some of these people. You admire their resilience, their simple humor, their kindness. You start to care about whether old Tanaka's knee will hold up through the planting season, whether the miller's daughter will marry the boy she loves. And that is terrifying, because attachments are anchors, and you are supposed to be a ghost, ready to disappear at a moment's notice. Every friendly conversation, every shared laugh, is another thread tying you to this place, to this false light. You are living a lie, and the most dangerous thing that can happen is for you to start believing it yourself. This psychological dynamic is a core, and often unspoken, element of your profession. A successful infiltration requires you to be likable, trustworthy, and empathetic, but you must hold a part of yourself in reserve. A cold, hard kernel of detachment that remembers the mission. It's a constant, draining balancing act. You have to be two people at once, living in the same skin. There is Kenji, who smiles and nods, and there is the shinobi, the silent observer inside, who is analyzing, recording, and judging. This duality leads to a profound sense of alienation. You are at the heart of the village, but you are also infinitely distant from it. You share their lives, but you are not truly living them. It's like watching a play from the stage instead of the audience. You know all the lines. You know all the actors. But you also know that the backdrop is made of painted canvas and the swords are made of wood. The reality of your situation is a secret you must carry alone, and the weight of that secret creates a chasm between you and everyone around you. Historians, of course, have different views on this. Some will romanticize your existence, portraying you as a master of your emotions, a cold-blooded professional who could switch his feelings on and off like a lantern. They imagine you as a machine, immune to the simple human need for connection. But other scholars, looking at the same scarce evidence, will argue for a more human interpretation. They will suggest that many agents in your position simply couldn't handle the strain. They went native, abandoning their missions to live out their lives in their new identities, or they broke under the pressure, making a fatal mistake that exposed them. Or, perhaps most tragically, they completed their missions and returned, only to find they could no longer fit back into the world they had left behind. They had spent so long as someone else that they had forgotten how to be themselves. You feel that danger keenly. One evening, a child, the son of your nearest neighbor, Peasant cuts his leg badly. You are the first one there. You react without thinking, using your training to quickly assess the wound. Apply pressure to stop the bleeding, and bind it cleanly with a strip of cloth torn from your own tunic. The parents are grateful, hailing you as a hero. But as you walk back to your hut, a cold sweat runs down your back. You acted too quickly. Your movements were too efficient, too calm, too practiced. It was the shinobi that took over, not Kenji the clumsy farmer. No one seemed to notice, but it was a crack in the facade, a reminder that the two people can't always coexist peacefully. One day, one of them might get the other killed, and as you lie on your mat that night, the loneliness returns, colder than ever. It's the loneliness of a man who can save a child's leg, but can't allow anyone to get close enough to see the scars on his own soul. Spring turns to summer, and the routine of toil deepens. But now, your nights have a new purpose. The days are for being Kenji the farmer, a man tethered to the earth. The nights are for the shinobi, a creature of shadows and silence. You have waited long enough. Your intelligence ledger, the knotted twine hidden in the thatch of your roof, is full of disconnected whispers about patrols, taxes, and supplies. It's time to give them context. It's time to map your enemy's world. Your target is not the Lord's castle. That would be suicide. It's the terrain around it. You wait for a moonless, overcast night. You dress not in some mythical black uniform, but in the same dark, dirt-stained peasant clothes you wear every day. Perfect camouflage for a rural landscape. You don't carry a sword. You carry the tools of a man who might be checking his snares or foraging for roots. A small hand spade, your trusty kunai, and a simple walking staff. You are utterly unremarkable. You slip out of your hut and melt into the darkness. This is not a Hollywood rooftop sprint. This is a slow, patient, and terrifyingly risky process. Every shadow could hold a guard. Every rustle of leaves could be a patrol. Your senses are on fire, a state you haven't experienced since your training. You hear the call of a night bird and pause, listening to determine if it's natural or a signal. You smell the wood smoke from the castle's kitchens and use it to judge the wind direction. Your first objective is a small, rarely used road that winds behind the castle. Your handler's initial briefing mentioned it was a possible route for reinforcements. You need to know its condition. You move along the edge of the forest that borders it, never stepping onto the path itself. You are not just looking, you are measuring. You use your walking staff, whose length you know precisely, to gauge the width of the road from a distance. You walk the length of it, counting your paces to measure its distance. You have been trained to know your own stride down to the end. A simple yet effective surveying technique. In your mind, you are drawing a map. This is a key, and often forgotten, aspect of your work. You are a cartographer. In an age before satellite imagery and printed maps, a hand-drawn diagram showing a hidden path, a shallow river crossing, or a weak section of a wall was an artifact of immense strategic value. A daimyo might risk a dozen men for a single, accurate map. As you move, you note the details that a normal person would ignore. Here, the road turns to thick mud impossible for heavy carts. There, a large tree has fallen near the edge, providing excellent cover for a potential ambush. You find a spot where a small stream crosses the path. You wade into the cold water, using your staff to probe its depth. It's only knee-deep. An army could cross here easily. This is vital information. Now for a stranger, more specific piece of your clandestine tradecraft. Identifying the enemy's resources by observing their construction. You creep closer to the base of the castle's outer wall. You don't try to climb it. You simply observe. You look at the stones. Are they local granite, easily quarried, or are they a different type of rock, brought from far away, suggesting a wealthy and well-supplied lord? You look at the mortar between the stones. Is it crumbling? Is it new? Then you do something that would seem utterly bizarre to an observer. You press your ear against the cold, damp stone of a support tower. You are listening to the building. You are trying to gauge its internal structure. Is it solid stone, or is it hollow-filled? A cheaper construction method that's more vulnerable to fire or sapping. This kind of structural intelligence is something historians sometimes puzzle over. How could a lone agent gather meaningful data? Just by looking and listening. The records are sparse, but the logic is sound. In an era of siege warfare, knowing the precise weaknesses of a fortress before you even attack is a game-changing advantage. Your job isn't to break the wall down, it's to find the one spot where it is already weakest, and whisper that secret to the men who command the cannons and the sappers. You spend hours in the darkness, a ghost collecting data points. The work is slow, methodical, and nerve-wracking. A dog barks from the castle, and you freeze for 10 minutes, your heart pounding, until the silence returns. When the first hint of dawn threatens the eastern sky, you are miles away, melting back into the landscape, your mind a repository of sightlines, distances, and weaknesses. You return to your hut just as the first villagers are stirring. You are once again Kenji, sleepy and sore from a hard day's work. No one knows that you have spent the night dissecting their master's fortress, one stone, one step at a time. In your head is a map drawn with fear and patience, waiting to be delivered. The increased activity you denoted before the winter the patrols. The interest in logging trails has not subsided. If anything, it's become more pronounced. Soldiers from the castle are a more common sight now, not just on the main roads, but in the village itself. They come in small groups, ostensibly to buy supplies or to remind everyone of the Lord's authority. But you know their real purpose. They are observing. They are doing exactly what you are doing, just from the other side of the fence. This creates a new, constant, low-level tension. The village is no longer a safe zone. It's a potential trap. Every interaction is now fraught with risk. You continue your role as Kenji, the simple farmer, but you feel a searchlight hovering just over your shoulder at all times. One afternoon, you are in your small plot of land, tending to your vegetables, when two samurai walk up the path to your hut. They are not the usual grumbling foot soldiers. These men are different. Their armor is of a higher quality, their movements more deliberate. One of them, a stern-faced man with a faint scar above his eye, stops and watches you. He doesn't speak. He just stands there, his hand resting casually on the hilt of his sword. Your heart doesn't race. Your training kicks in. You do not look up immediately. That would be a sign of alarm. You finish pulling the weed you were working on, calmly toss it aside, and only then do you slowly straighten up, rubbing your back as if it aches, and give a short, subservient bow. You are Kenji. You are no threat. You're not from this valley. The samurai says. It is not a question. No, master. You reply, your voice a humble murmur. My village was washed away. I am lucky to have found a place here. You keep your eyes lower. To meet a samurai's gaze directly is an act of defiance. The samurai is silent for a long moment. You can feel his eyes scrutinizing you. He's looking at your hands, your posture, the way you stand. This is a test. He is trying to see past the grime and the peasant clothes. He is looking for a hint of the warrior, the trained man. You force yourself to remain limp, unassuming. You consciously slump your shoulders. You let your mouth hang slightly open, projecting an image of simple-minded fatigue. Then, his gaze falls upon your kama, your sickle, lying on the ground beside your basket. He points at it with his chin. You keep it sharp. He observes. This is a critical moment. A mainstream historical fact is that samurai were the only class legally permitted to carry two swords, a symbol of their status and martial prowess. A peasant having a weapon that was too well maintained could be seen as a sign of rebellious intent. A dull blade makes for a long day's work. Master, you say, your voice still quiet and respectful, and a sore back. The samurai grunts, an ambiguous sound. He takes a step closer, his eyes scanning the area around your hut. AHES looking at the patched roof, the neatly weeded garden. He's assessing you. Is this man what he appears to be? A diligent, broken survivor? Or is he something more? The silence stretches on, thick and heavy. Your entire life, your entire mission, hangs on this single, quiet moment of scrutiny. This is the reality of counterintelligence in your time. It's not about elaborate spy-catching gadgets. It's about human observation. It's about a trained warrior's instinct for when something is not quite right. Historians will debate the effectiveness of such methods. Was it truly possible for a samurai to sniff out a shinobi through sheer intuition and observation? Or are the stories of such encounters exaggerated, romanticizing the samurai's supposed innate perception? In this moment, you don't care about the academic debate. You only care about the scar-faced man standing 3 feet away from you, whose gut feeling could end your life. Finally, after what feels like an eternity, he seems to lose interest. He gives another, non-committal grunt and turns away. "See that you cause no trouble," he says over his shoulder as he and his companion walk back down the path. You don't move. You wait until they are completely out of sight. Only then do you slowly let out a breath you didn't realize you were holding. You sink to your knees, your hands trembling slightly. It's not from fear. It's the release of adrenaline. He saw nothing. Or, more accurately, he saw exactly what you wanted him to see. A man so thoroughly beaten down by life that he has become part of the dirt he cultivates. The facade held, but it was a stark reminder. You are not invisible. You are being watched, and the man with the scar will remember you. The next time, you might not be so lucky. The close call with the samurai leaves a lingering chill. You realize that your knotted string and mental maps are useless if you can't get them to your handler. The silent, one-way communication of leaving colored rice grains at a drop point is no longer sufficient. It's too passive. You need a way to signal that you have urgent information, a way to request a meeting. You also need to know if your network is still active, or if you are truly alone. This is where the less dramatic, but arguably more ingenious side of your tradecraft comes into play. You don't need to risk a secret meeting in a tavern. You don't need a dead drop in a hollow tree, which could be discovered. You need to use the existing currents of society, the natural flow of people and information, to carry your message for you. You need a messenger who doesn't even know they are carrying a message. Your mind turns to the Komuso, the wandering Buddhist monks of the Fuke sect. They are a common sight on the roads of Japan. They are easily recognizable, with their distinctive woven basket hats, the tengai, that completely cover their heads, symbolizing their detachment from the world. They play the shakuhachi, a bamboo flute, as a form of meditation and to beg for alms. A core principle of their sect is that they are permitted to travel freely throughout the country, even across strict domain borders, a privilege afforded to almost no one else. This makes them, as a group, the perfect, unwitting intelligence network. The historical reality of the Komuso monks is complex and fascinating. While many were surely devout ascetics, their ranks were also known to include disgraced samurai, fugitives, and spies from various factions. The government even officially granted them their travel privileges in exchange for the understanding that some of them would act as government informants. It was an open secret, because it was impossible to tell a real monk from a spy in disguise. They were simultaneously respected for their piety and watched with suspicion. You decide to leverage this network. One morning, you hear the haunting, breathy melody of a shakuhachi drifting down the valley road. Komuso is approaching. You don't approach him directly. Instead, you go to the small Jizo statue at the village entrance, the place you have so carefully tended. You leave a small offering, a single, perfect rice ball from your meager meal. But before you place it down, you make a small, almost unappeasable alteration. You press a single, dried soybean into the very top. It's a tiny detail. It looks like an accident, a stray bit of food, but it is a signal. A soybean on a rice ball offering at a Jizo shrine is a prearranged sign. Meeting operative has important terrain logistical data. Requires contact. Now you wait. The monk slowly makes his way through the village, playing his flute, collecting small offerings of food. He eventually reaches the Jizo statue. He bows his head. You watch from a distance, your heart beating a steady, controlled rhythm. He sees your offering. Does he understand? Or will he simply see a rice ball and eat it? He pauses for a moment, then picks it up. He turns and continues on his way, his flute music slowly fading as he leaves the valley. You have no idea if the message was received. This specific monk may not be part of your network. He might just be a hungry musician. But the beauty of the system is its redundancy. Other Komuso travel these roads. If he is part of the network, he will not act on the information himself. His job is simply to pass the signal on. At the next major temple or monastery on his route, he will make a specific, subtle alteration to a public prayer board, or use a certain phrase when talking to the head monk. The signal will ripple through the network, a chain of whispers passed from one oblivious-looking traveler to another, until it reaches someone who knows what it means and who it came from. The brilliance of this system, a historical oddity that is often overlooked in favor of more dramatic spycraft, is its absolute deniability. You never spoke to the monk. The monk never spoke to you. The message itself was a piece of food. There is no evidence of conspiracy. It's a system built on subtlety and the exploitation of plain sight. Days turn into a week. You go about your farming. Your mind a tense mixture of hope and doubt. Did it work? Or are you just wasting soybeans? The question of how these shinobi networks were really organized and funded is a major point of contention among historians. Were they formal, centrally controlled organizations with budgets and payrolls, like a modern intelligence agency, or were they loose, informal associations of specialists who operated on a contract basis, using these kinds of subtle, trust-based systems to communicate? The evidence is so thin that both theories are plausible. Then, one evening, as you are heading back from the fields, you see him, a simple farmer, leading an ox, coming down the path toward you. He looks like any other peasant, but you recognize his face. It's the handler from the tavern, the chonin. He doesn't look at you. He just keeps walking, but as he passes, he accidentally drops his small wooden pipe. He doesn't stop. You wait a moment, then walk over and pick it up. Tucked into the bowl is a tiny, tightly rolled piece of rice paper. Your heart leaps. The message got through. Contact has been made. The existence of female shinobi, known as Kunoichi, is one of the most popular and, at the same time, most fiercely debated topics related to your shadowy world. The modern image is a seductive femme fatale, a deadly assassin who uses her beauty to get close to a target before delivering a fatal sting. It's a compelling fantasy, a staple of movies and folklore. But as you stand here, a man who has survived for years by being as plain and unapaidable as a stone, you know that the reality, if it existed at all, must have been something far more subtle and practical. Let's first address the mainstream, popular version of the Kunoichi. They are often depicted as having trained in a unique set of skills, focusing on disguise, manipulation, and the use of smaller, easily concealed weapons. The idea is that while a male shinobi might disguise himself as a farmer or a monk, a Kunoichi could infiltrate a castle as a handmaiden, a dancer, or even a concubine. In this role, she would have access to the most private chambers and the most unguarded conversations. She could gather pillow talk intelligence or, in the most dramatic tellings, assassinate a lord in his own bed. This narrative is tantalizing, but it rests on very thin historical evidence. The term Kunoichi itself is a piece of esoteric wordplay, a kind of code. The character for woman is made up of 3 strokes. The character for the number 9, ko, is 2 strokes. The character for 1, ichi, is 1 stroke. And the kana character, no, looks like one of the strokes. It's a clever little cipher, but it doesn't appear in any serious historical text from the Warring States period when you are living. It comes from later, Edo period documents, particularly the Bansenshukai, a famous 17th century compendium of ninjutsu knowledge. By then, your world was already becoming the stuff of legend. This is where the academic debate really heats up. One school of thought among historians argues that the Kunoichi as a distinct class of trained female operative is almost entirely a fabrication of this later period. They suggest that the authors of texts like the Bansenshukai were trying to create a complete, encyclopedic science of ninjutsu, and they invented the Kunoichi to fill a logical gap. If men can be spies, why not women? These historians argue that in the rigidly patriarchal society of feudal Japan, it would have been exceedingly difficult for a woman to operate with the kind of independence and mobility that espionage required. Her movements would have been restricted, her presence in many places questioned. However, Another group of scholars pushes back against this dismissal. They argue that while the Hollywood image is certainly false, it's naive to think that women were not used in intelligence gathering at all. Their role, however, would have been very different. Instead of being a trained assassin, a woman's greatest asset was that she was socially invisible in a different way than you are. No one would suspect a servant girl, quietly cleaning a room, of memorizing the contents of a letter left on a table. No one would think twice about a traveling shrine maiden, or Mika, who moves from town to town, gathering stories and rumors along with donations. This is a much more plausible scenario. The role of these female agents would not have been seduction and murder, but observation and communication. They would be information mules, using their unassuming social roles to move through society unnoticed, gathering the same kind of low-level intelligence you do. Gossip, rumors, and observations about supplies and morale. There is a fascinating, if unverified, story about a woman named Mochizuki Kiyomi. She was a noblewoman from the 16th century who, according to legend, was tasked by the famous daimyo Takeda Daishingen to create a network of female spies. She reportedly recruited orphan girls, prostitutes, and runaways, training them not in combat, but as shrine maidens. These maidens could then travel the countryside, gathering information under the cloak of religious piety. Is the story of Mochizuki Kiyomi true? Historians are deeply divided. There is very little concrete evidence to support it. It might be a later invention to give a historical anchor to the Kunoichi legend, but it points to a more realistic model of what a female operative's life would have been like. Her weapon wouldn't have been a dagger hidden in her kimono, but the societal expectation that she was harmless, fierce, and unimportant. Her skill was not in killing, but in listening, remembering, and passing on what she learned. For you, Kenji, this is not an academic question. You know the value of being underestimated. As you see the servant women moving about the village, you see potential allies and potential threats. You know that the quiet woman serving sake to a group of gossiping soldiers might be the most effective spy in the entire province. She is not a Kunoichi from a movie. She is a survivor, using the tools available to her. And in your world, the most powerful tool is the assumption, by powerful men, that you do not matter. Back in the dim light of your hut, your hands, steady from years of discipline, carefully unroll the tiny scroll of rice paper. The message is not written in words. It's a drawing, a simple ink painting. It shows a withered rice plant, its stalk bent and broken. Below it is a drawing of a river, with a single arrow pointing east. That's it. No signature, no instructions. It doesn't need any. The meaning is brutally clear. The rice plant, the symbol of your identity as a farmer, is dead. Your time as Kenji is over. The river means you are to become mobile, to flow. And east is the direction of the main castle town, the nerve center of the enemy lord's domain. A strange feeling washes over you. It's not relief. It's not sadness. It's a profound sense of dislocation. You have spent years building the persona of Kenji. You have endured hunger, cold, and loneliness in his skin. You have felt the ache in his muscles and the calluses on his hands. You have earned the trust of the villagers, and now you must kill him. Killing Kenji doesn't involve a blade. It involves a quiet, deliberate erasure. That night, a fierce spring storm rolls through the valley. The wind howling and the rain lashing down. It's the perfect cover. You take the few things that belong to the Shinobi, the knotted twine, the colored rice grains, and burn them in your small fire until they are nothing but ash. You leave everything that belongs to Kenji, the sickle, the hoe, the worn-out sleeping mat. You take one last look at the small, sturdy hut you rebuilt with your own hands. Then you slip out into the storm and walk away. The next morning, the villagers will find the hut empty. They will see that your tools are still there. They will assume that you, the quiet, unlucky man named Kenji, went out into the storm for some reason, perhaps to check a snare or secure the roof, and met with a tragic accident. Perhaps you fell into the swollen river. They will search for a day or two, find no body, and then, with a sad shake of their heads, they will forget you. Kenji's story is over. A few miles away, at a A range dead drop hidden in the hollow of an ancient camphor tree. You find a new life waiting for you. This time, it's not a bundle of peasant's rags. It's a sturdy, dark blue kimono, the kind worn by a traveling merchant or peddler. There's a small pouch of coins, enough to be a plausible starting capital. There are goods a small wooden box filled with cheap but useful items like sewing needles, bone combs, and packets of herbs. And there is a new primary tool. It's not a weapon, it's a soroban, a Japanese abacus. You must now become a merchant. This is a significant step up in the world of intelligence gathering. As a farmer, you were studied. You could only observe what came to you. As a traveling merchant, you have a legitimate reason to be anywhere. You can enter towns, visit markets, and speak to soldiers, stewards, and commoners alike. Your entire business is based on asking questions. What's the price of rice in the next town? Is a road north safe for travel? I hear the Lord is buying up a lot of charcoal. Is there a festival coming up? Under the guise of commerce, you can conduct a full-scale economic and logistical survey of the enemy's domain. But mastering the abacus is more than just learning to calculate. This simple wooden calculator becomes your new secret ledger. This is a rather obscure but ingenious trick of the trade. The position of the beads can be a code. If you leave the beads on the third rod showing the number 7, it could be a note to yourself that you counted 7 supply carts heading north. The number on the 5th rod could correspond to the current price of iron. Your abacus, which you can carry and use openly, becomes a complex data storage device. Its meaning visible only to you. It is a calculator, a notebook, and a secret intelligence report, all hidden in plain sight. This raises a question that historians of economics and warfare continue to debate. Were Shinobi networks used purely for military intelligence, or did they also serve as instruments of economic warfare? Could a daimyo use the information gathered by agents like you to manipulate markets? For instance, if your lord knew from your reports that the enemy's rice harvest was going to be poor, he could send his own agents, disguised as merchants, to buy up rice in the surrounding provinces, creating a shortage and driving up the price, potentially causing famine and unrest in the enemy domain without a single arrow being fired. The line between espionage and economic policy could be incredibly blurry, and you are now walking right on that line. You spend a week in the wilderness, not practicing sword forms, but hunched over the abacus, your fingers, once clumsy with farm tools, learning to flick the beads with speed and precision. You practice the patter of a salesman, the friendly but shrewd negotiation tactics. You are no longer Kenji, the broken man. You are Soda, a man of modest ambition, just trying to make a living. You walk out of the forest and onto the main road heading east, your box of goods balanced on your shoulder. Ahead of you lies the castle town, a place of noise, crowds, and 1,000 new secrets, waiting to be bought and sold. You arrive at the castle town of Kamiyama, and it's a sensory assault. After years in the quiet isolation of Ochiba village, the sheer density of people, noise, and smells is overwhelming. The narrow streets are thronged with samurai in formal attire, servants hurrying on errands, merchants shouting their wares, and farmers bringing in goods. The air is thick with the aroma of street food, the stench of open drains, and the metallic tang of a blacksmith's forge. Your first instinct is to shrink back, to find a quiet corner. But you are not Kenji the peasant anymore. You are Soda the merchant. Your business is people. You must dive in. You find a small, cheap room in a crowded inn that caters to travelers like yourself. It's noisy and not particularly clean, but it's the perfect base of operations. It places you right in the middle of the town's information stream. Your first few days are not about selling. They are about establishing a pattern. You walk the same route every morning, setting up your small stall in a corner of the main market square. You are not aggressive. You don't shout. You lay out your needles, combs, and herbs neatly on a cloth and simply wait for customers. A friendly, non-threatening smile on your face. You are creating a baseline of normalcy. Your new life is governed by the principles of commerce, which are just another form of intelligence gathering. This is the central, historical truth of your new role. The market is the true heart of the domain. It's where you can feel the Lord's economic health, in a way you never could in a remote village. You listen to the prices. Is the cost of salt going up? That could indicate trouble with supply lines from the coast. Is the price of charcoal suspiciously high? That confirms the rumors you heard as a farmer about the Lord stockpiling resources, possibly for a campaign. Your abacus is your constant companion. When a customer buys a coal, you meticulously record the transaction. Click, click. But you're recording more than just the sale. The woman who bought it was a servant from a samurai household. She complained that her master was in a foul mood because his stipend had been delayed. Click, click. You slide a bead on another rod. A mental note. Potential financial trouble among the lower-ranking samurai retainers. A disgruntled, unpaid warrior is a potential source of information, or even a future traitor. This is where your work gets incredibly subtle. A soldier buys a packet of your herbal medicine, complaining of a persistent cough that's going around the barracks. Click, click. A mental note on the health of the garrison. Are they living in damp, unhealthy conditions? A sick army is a weak army. These are not state secrets. This is the mundane, everyday reality of the town. But when collected and analyzed, these tiny data points can paint a detailed portrait of your enemy's weaknesses. One of your most useful and unusual tools in this new role is not a weapon, but the very goods you sell. You have a few packets of a special kind of face powder, a luxury item popular with the wives of wealthy merchants and high-ranking samurai. It's a bit of an oddity among your otherwise practical wares, but it's bait. One day, a lady's maid, her kimono indicating she serves a powerful household, stops at your stall and inquires about the powder. This is your chance. You become the perfect salesman. You praise her discerning taste. You offer her a small discount. And as you are wrapping the item, you engage in harmless gossip. I hope this brings a smile to your mistress's face. It must be a tense time in the great houses, with the Lord's Council meeting so often. You say it with a slightly conspiratorial, friendly tone. The maid, flattered by your attention and pleased with her purchase, might lean in and whisper, "Oh, you have no idea. My mistress says the Lord is furious about the latest reports from the western border." She might not say anything at all, but you have cast your eye. You are using commerce as a key to unlock doors that would otherwise be closed to you. Historians often debate the true social standing of merchants in feudal Japan. Officially, they were near the bottom of the four-tiered class system, below samurai, farmers, and artisans, because they didn't produce anything themselves. However, the reality was often very different. Wealthy merchants could hold significant power, lending money to impoverished samurai and even to the daimyo themselves. This created a complex, fluid social dynamic that a clever agent could exploit. You, as the humble peddler soda, are using this ambiguity to your advantage. You are low-ranking enough to be ignored, but you are also a part of the economic fabric that connects everyone. As you sit at your stall day after day, you are not just selling needles on dirts. You are selling a persona of a friendly, harmless, and slightly gossipy merchant. You are weaving yourself into the life of the town, one small transaction, one piece of idle chatter at a time. Your ledger is no longer a knotted string in a hidden hut. It is a set of carefully positioned beads on an abacus, an open book that no one else knows how to read. And every click of the beads is another small victory in a silent and declared war. Your life as Soda the Merchant has been successful. You have woven yourself into the fabric of Kamiyama. Your abacus is a silent library of the town's secrets. But you're hitting a wall, a very literal one. It's the high, gray stone wall that separates the commoners' district from the samurai quarter. As Soda, you have no reason to be in there. Your cheap needles on derbs are of no interest to the warrior class. The guards at the gate would turn you away without a second thought. All the truly valuable intelligence, the strategic meetings, the orders from the daimyo, the conspiracies among his retainers is happening just a few hundred feet away, in a world you cannot enter. Your disguise has reached its limit. You think back to a core principle of your training. A disguise is not just a change of clothes. It's a key that unlocks a specific door. A farmer's rags unlock the secrets of the land. A merchant's kimono unlocks the secrets of the market. To get past the samurai gate, you're made an okay. This brings to mind the doctrine that later chroniclers would call the Shikai Hodi, the 7 ways of going. It's a list of 7 archetypal identities the shinobi should be able to adopt. A wandering monk, Komuso, a mountain ascetic, Yamabushai, a merchant, a street entertainer, a priest, a common soldier, and a regular talisman. You've mastered 2. You need more. One afternoon, as you're packing up your stall, a commotion draws your attention. A troupe of sorrow, a Geikeiyu performers has arrived in the square. They are street entertainers, a mix of acrobats, musicians, and comedians. The crowd loves them. They are loud, colorful, and chaotic. But as you watch, you are not entertained. You are studying. You see a young man, impossibly nimble, doing backflips and somersaults. To the crowd, he is an acrobat. To you, he is a man whose physical conditioning is perfect for scaling walls and moving silently across rooftops. You see a masked dancer telling a famous historical story through his movements. To the crowd, he is a performer. To you, he is an expert in nonverbal communication, capable of conveying a complex message with a simple gesture. Then, there is the lead musician, a man playing a biwa and singing tales of heroic battles and tragic love affairs. And this is where you spot the truly unusual, almost absurd, level of the craft. A song is a well-known local ballad about a princess waiting for her lover to return from war. But he has changed some of the words. It's a tiny alteration, one that 99% of the audience misses. Instead of singing the autumn wind blows cold, he sings the warehouse wind blows cold. And instead of my love is delayed by the rain, he sings the Lord's rice is delayed by the rain. It's a stunningly brazen act. He is standing in the middle of an enemy town, surrounded by soldiers, and he is singing an intelligence report out loud. His song is a coded message, broadcast in plain sight, its meaning completely hidden by the context of the performance. The acrobatics and jokes are just a distraction. The real work is in the music. This is the kind of bizarre but brilliant technique that separates the amateur from the master. It's a level of deception that is almost performance art, and it highlights a question that historians of your era will forever be unable to conclusively answer. How deep did the training for these disguises go? To be a convincing Komuso monk, did you need to actually learn Buddhist doctrine and master the shakuhachi flute? To be a convincing or a Geikeiyu performer, did you need to spend years training as an acrobat and a musician? Or was it just a matter of putting on the costume and bluffing your way through? The prevailing scholarly opinion will lean towards the latter, that most shinobi were pragmatists, not master actors. They would learn just enough to be plausible. But you, watching this singer, are not so sure. The subtlety is too perfect. This man, you suspect, is no part-time spy. He is a true performer and a true shinobi. The two identities completely unseamlessly merged. His art is his cover, and his cover is his art. That night, back in your room, you look at your own reflection. You see Soda the merchant. It's a solid, reliable persona, but it's one-dimensional. You begin to practice. You change your posture. Hutching your back and adopting the shuffling, world-weary gait of an old man. You alter your voice, pitching it higher, giving it the nasal quality of a self-important scholar. You practice the gestures of a Shinto priest making a blessing. You are adding keys to your ring. You may never be able to sing a coded message in a crowded square, but you understand the principle. The goal is not just to wear a mask. It is to have a different face for every door you need to open. The pressure is mounting. The samurai from the castle, the one with the scar, has been seen more frequently in the market. You've caught his eye a few times, and there's a flicker of recognition, a faint curiosity that you don't like. He still sees you as Soda the harmless merchant, but his gaze lingers a second too long. He's a dog that has caught a scent, even if he doesn't know what it is yet. Worse, your handler has missed to schedule passive check-ins. A pre-arranged signal a particular flower pot moved in a tavern window has been out of place twice. This could mean anything. He could be sick. He could have been recalled, or he could have been captured. If it's the latter, then it's only a matter of time before they come for you. You are cornered. Your current identity is becoming a trap. Your support network is silent. The walls are closing in. This is the moment where most agents break. They panic, they run, and they get caught. But your training was for this exact scenario. It taught you that in moments of extreme danger, the most aggressive action is often the safest. When your identity is compromised, you don't run. You exchange it for a new one. You must force the issue. One evening, a fire breaks out in the warehouse district near the river. It's not a large fire, but it creates the perfect diversion. Bells are ringing, people are shouting, and the town's watchmen are all running towards the smoke. This is the chaos you need, but you are not running away from it. You are running towards it. You race back to your inn room. In less than a minute, you transform. You shed the skin of Soda the merchant. You smear your face with soot from the bottom of your cooking pot. You tear your kimono. You grab a half-empty sack of rice that you've kept for this purpose. You are no longer a merchant. You are a victim, a man who has lost everything in the fire. You join the throng of panicked people in the streets, but you are not moving randomly. You have a destination. You head for the main gate leading to the samurai quarter. As expected, the guards are distracted, trying to maintain order while looking towards the fire. You stumble towards them. You face a mask of terror and despair. Maestro, my goods, you wail, your voice choked with fake sobs. Everything is gone. The fire took everything. You collapse near the gate, clutching your pitiful sack of rice. The very picture of a man whose world has just ended. The guards, annoyed but also slightly sympathetic, try to push you back. The fire is not near the market. Old man, now move along. But I lived in the back. It's all gone. You cry, pointing vaguely towards the smoke. You are creating a scene, but it's a scene of desperation, not aggression. You are deliberately making yourself a problem that needs to be solved. Just then, a patrol of samurai, led by a stern-faced captain, comes through the gate, heading towards the fire. It's him, the man with the scar. This is the moment of truth. He sees you, a pathetic, soot-stained figure weeping on the ground. He recognizes you as Soda the merchant. His eyes narrow. He is a man who suspects you, who has a gut feeling that something is not right about you. But what he sees now completely contradicts his suspicion. A master spy wouldn't be crying in the street, covered in soot, having lost everything. A master spy would have slipped away quietly in the confusion. This is a classic, if brutally risky, Shinobi technique, something that modern historians call a false flag on a personal level. You are destroying your own cover identity in a way that confirms your innocence. You are not just abandoning the role of Soda. You are giving him a definitive, tragic, and public end. The captain, the man with the scar, hesitates. His suspicion is at war with the evidence in front of him. He sees a broken merchant, not a cunning spy. Get this man some water and send him on his way. He barks at the guards, his voice filled with annoyance rather than suspicion. He has more important things to deal with. He and his patrol hurry off towards the fire. It worked. You have looked your greatest threat in the eye and convinced him that he was wrong about you. In a single, desperate gamble, you have erased his suspicion forever. You will never look for Soda the merchant again, because you saw Soda's life end. You allow the guards to help you up and give you a cup of water, still mumbling about your lost fortune. Then, you shuffle away into the chaos. A broken man, but once you are out of sight, you stand up straight. The shuffling gait disappears. The look of despair vanishes. You are no one now, a ghost in the crowd. You have survived, but you are now completely untethered, with no identity, no support, and an enemy who is on high alert. Your only option is to find out what happened to your handler Andre established contact, a task that is now more dangerous than ever. For 3 days, you are a ghost. You live in the city's darkest corners, sleeping in abandoned sheds and behind piles of refuse. You are no one, and you have nothing. The soot and grime from the fire are no longer a disguise. They are your reality. You beg for scraps of food, keeping your head down, your face averted. This period of anonymity is crucial. You are letting the city's memory of Soda the ruined merchant fade completely. You are a blank slate, waiting for a new name. During this time, your entire focus is on a single location, a small, unassuming sake brewery on the edge of the town. This brewery was your emergency contact point, the last resort if all other communication failed. Your handler once told you, if the world goes silent, listen for the sound of the coopers. Coopers are barrel makers, and they're constant. Rhythmic hammering is the heartbeat of a brewery. That sound is your new lifeline. You spend hours observing the brewery from a distance, hidden in an alleyway across the street. You learn its rhythms. You see the workers arrive in the morning and leave at night. You watch the carts come and go, delivering rice and carrying away full barrels of sake. You are looking for a crack, a way in. More importantly, you are looking for a sign that your network is still alive. Then, on the third day, you see it. It's not a dramatic signal. It's the absence of one. A stray cat, a ginger Tom with a torn ear, is a permanent fixture at the brewery, always begging for scraps from the workers. But today, the cat is gone, and in its place, sitting in the exact spot the cat always claimed, is a black dog. This is it. The black dog is the signal. It means the network is compromised, but a single point of contact remains active. The dog also tells you the nature of the problem. In your network's code, a dog signifies a sniffer, an inquisitor, someone actively hunting for spies. Your handler has likely been taken. Now comes the hard part. The signal tells you it's safe to make contact, but it doesn't tell you how. You can't just walk up to the door. You have to wait for the invitation. You continue your vigil. Your hunger a dull ache in your stomach. Finally, late in the afternoon, a cart filled with empty barrels leaves the brewery. As it rumbles past your alley, one of the barrels accidentally rolls off the back and comes to a stop. Just a few feet away from you, the cart driver doesn't stop. He doesn't even look back. You wait until the street is empty. Then you approach the barrel. You tilt it, and tucked inside the rim is a small, heavy object wrapped in cloth. It's a cooper's mallet and a note. The note contains a single character, water. You now have a new identity and a new task. You are to be a low-level laborer at the brewery. Your job to haul water from the nearby river. It's grueling, unskilled work, the kind of job no one would look at twice. It's the perfect way to embed yourself inside the operation. That night, you clean yourself up as best you can in the river, and the next morning, you present yourself at the brewery's side gate, mallet in hand. The foreman, a burly man with a perpetually sour expression, looks you over, grunts, and points you towards a stack of buckets. You are in. You spend your days hauling water. Your evenings are spent repairing barrels, using the mallet they gave you. The work is mind-numbing, but it gives you legitimate access to the entire brewery complex. And slowly, patiently, you start to piece together what happened. You learn through snippets of overheard conversation. Your new handler is the foreman himself, the sour-faced man. He communicates with you in grunts and complaints. That last batch of rice was moldy. He growls at you one day, which is code for the last intelligence report was corrupted. Through this disjointed, frustrating process, the story emerges. Your old handler, the man who recruited you in the tavern, was captured. He was betrayed by another agent, someone who broke under interrogation. The enemy now has a partial description of the network's methods. They are actively hunting for the remaining pieces. The man with the scar, the samurai captain, is the lead inquisitor. And then, after weeks of hauling water and listening to coded complaints, you finally receive it. The one piece of information that makes all the years of boredom, loneliness, and fear worthwhile. One evening, the foreman accidentally leaves a work ledger open on a table. You glance at it. It's mostly numbers and inventory. But in the margins, there is a small, seemingly random notation next to a future delivery date. It says, Red Pine Festival. Your blood runs cold. The Red Pine Festival is a major local holiday, a day when the daimyo and all his most important retainers gather at the main temple for a public ceremony. It's a day of celebration. But the note in the ledger tells you the truth. Your network has learned that a rival clan, when supposedly allied with your lord, is planning to use the festival as cover. They are going to launch a surprise attack, a decapitation strike, aiming to kill the entire enemy leadership in a single, bold move. This isn't just intelligence. This is the key to winning the entire conflict. Your lord isn't the only one with a spine at work, and your years of patient work have just uncovered a plot that will change the balance of power in the entire province. The long wait is finally over. The signal has arrived. The information burns in your mind. The Red Pine Festival, a betrayal, a surprise attack. This changes everything. Your mission up to this point has been passive. You were a censor, a listening post. Now, you have been handed a live bomb. The question is, what does your lord want you to do with it? Do you simply try to get this information out, a message that could easily be intercepted? Or is your role about to change from intelligence gathering to active intervention? Your handler, the brewery foreman, gives you the answer the next day. He doesn't speak to you. As you walk past him, he is inspecting a large vat of fermenting sake. He dips a ladle in, tastes it, and spits it out in disgust. Too much heat. He grumbles to no one in particular. It will spoil the whole batch. We need to cool it down. Cause a distraction. A small fire in the grain store tonight. Just smoke. No real damage. Make sure the night watch is looking the other way. The message is clear, layered with meaning. Too much heat refers to the impending surprise attack. Spoil the whole batch means it will ruin your own lord's plans. Perhaps he has his own strategy in motion that this attack would disrupt. Cause a distraction is your new mission. You are not to assassinate the enemy lord. You are not to fight the attacking clan. Your job is far more subtle, and in many ways, more difficult. You are to prevent the attack from happening, without revealing your own hand to either side. You must orchestrate a failure, and the method, a small fire in the grain store. This is a classic shinobi tactic, one that historians will often reference. Our son, Warhawke, was a primary to love yours, valued far more than assassination. Killing a man is simple. It's always one problem, but a well-placed fire can cause chaos, disrupt supply lines, create a panic that allows for an escape, or, in this case, serve as a powerful, deniable signal. It's the ultimate form of Mystericaden. You now understand the true goal. If the enemy lord's main grain store, the primary food supply for his castle and army, were to suddenly go up in flames the night before the festival, it would trigger a massive internal crisis. All available troops and resources would be redirected to fight the fire and secure the remaining food. The castle would go on high alert. Security would be tripled. The festive, relaxed atmosphere required for the surprise attack would be completely shattered. The conspirators, seeing the heightened security and chaos, would be forced to call off their plan. They would assume they had been discovered, but they wouldn't know how. The enemy lord would blame the fire on incompetence or a simple accident. No one would ever suspect that a lone agent, acting on third-hand information, had manipulated the entire situation. It's a perfect plan, elegant, indirect, and completely untraceable. This brings up a fascinating and often misunderstood aspect of your profession. You are not just a spy. You are an agent of influence. Your job isn't always to report on events, but to shape them. This concept, what modern strategists might call active measures or psychological operations, was a core part of advanced ninjutsu. It's not about winning a battle. It's about making the battle unnecessary. Some scholars will argue that this level of strategic influence is exaggerated, that agents like you were merely scouts and saboteurs, not grand political puppeteers. They'll claim the stories of shinobi manipulating events on this scale are later embellishments, designed to make your profession seem more powerful and mysterious than it truly was. But as you stand there, the foreman's words echoing in your ears, you know the truth. This is the highest form of the art. It's the difference between a man who can pickle lock and a man who can convince the guard to open the door for him. Your final mission is not a dramatic duel on a castle roof. It is a calculated act of arson. It requires no flashy swordplay, no heroic confrontation. It requires patience, planning, and a deep understanding of human psychology. You must engineer a crisis that seems like a random tragedy. You are not a warrior. You are a stage manager, preparing to create a piece of theater so convincing that even the actors won't know they're in a play. The fate of two powerful clans, and potentially the entire province, now rests on your ability to light a single, well-placed fire. The target is the Lord's primary grain warehouse. It's not just a building. It's a fortress within a fortress, located in the castle's second ring of defense, right next to the main barracks. The security is immense. Patrols pass by every 15 minutes. Archers are stationed on the nearby walls. Getting close is difficult. Setting a fire and escaping is, by any rational measure, impossible. This is not a task of brute force. It is a puzzle, and every piece must fit perfectly. Your first day of planning is spent just hauling water, but your mind is a whirlwind of observation. As you move back and forth from the river to the brewery, you force yourself to take different paths, crisscrossing the town, all the while studying the castle from every possible angle. You are not looking for a way in. You are looking for a weakness in the system, a flaw in the human element of its defense. You find it in the late afternoon. It's a small, almost trivial detail. Every day, round the hour of the monkey, a small cart laden with kitchen refuse leaves the barracks and is taken to a composting pit outside the castle's secondary gate. The guards at the gate, tired and bored at the end of their shift, barely glance at it. The cart is driven by a grumpy old man who has been doing the same job for 20 years. The cart and its driver are invisible. This is your way in. That night, you don't sleep. In the dark, cavernous space of the brewery's barrel room, you begin your preparations. You are not building a bomb. You are building a time-delayed fuse, constructed from the most mundane materials imaginable. This is a classic, if obscure, piece of Shinobi craft. You take a long, thin strip of oiled rice paper. You lay down a trail of finely ground charcoal mixed with saltpeter, an ingredient you managed to acquire in small amounts from your merchant days, ostensibly for preserving fish. Then, you find your timing mechanism. A cat. The brewery is full of them. Lazy creatures used to keep the mice away. You find a sleepy one and tie a piece of string to its collar. At the end of the string, you attach your fuse. The final component is a small bag of dried fish. It's a beautifully simple, if somewhat cruel, device. The next afternoon, you put your plan into motion. You find the grumpy old cart driver on his route. You don't threaten him. You approach him with a story of desperation, a variation on a role you know well. You are a man on the run, mistaken for a thief, and you need to get out of the city. You offer him a handful of coins, more money than he makes in a month, to let you hide in his cart. He complains. He grumbles, but he takes the money. You climb into the back of the cart, burying yourself under sacks of rotting vegetables and kitchen waste. The smell is stomach-turning. It's a return to the night soil of your former days, a humbling reminder of the unglamorous reality of your work. As the car trundles through the gate, you are just another piece of trash, invisible to the board guards. You are inside. The cart stops at the composting pit, right behind the grain warehouse. The old man, true to his word, turns a blind eye as you slip out and melt into the shadows behind the building. Now, for the final piece of the puzzle, you wait. You listen to the patrol schedules, confirming the timing you observed from outside. You have a 10-minute window. When the patrol passes, you move. You find a small, barred window at the base of the warehouse, used for ventilation. It's too small for a man to fit through, but it's perfect for a cat. You take out the sleepy feline. You place the bag of dried fish inside the window, as far as you can reach. Then you place the cat on the ground, the long paper fuse trailing behind it. The cat, waking up and smelling the fish, does exactly what you expect it to. It squeezes through the narrow opening. The fuse, attached to its collar, is pulled in after it. Historians will debate endlessly whether such elaborate, animal-assisted contraptions were actually used. The Bansenshukai contains many such fantastic-sounding techniques, and it's impossible to know if they were practical field methods or theoretical brainstorming. Some scholars will dismiss them as pure folklore, but in this moment, You are relying on the simple, predictable nature of a hungry cat. You don't light the fuse. That's the final, brilliant piece of the plan. You have already prepared a slow match. A piece of punk would treat it to smolder for hours without a flame. You wedge the smoldering end against the paper fuse, knowing it will take at least 2 hours before it burns down enough to ignite it. You are creating a fire with a natural, built-in alibi. By the time the fire starts, you will be long gone. Your work is done. You slip back to the composting pit, bury yourself in the stinking refuse again, and wait for the old man to make his return trip. As you ride out of the castle gate, hidden under the garbage, you are just a ghost, leaving behind a tiny, smoldering secret that will soon bloom into a massive, chaotic, and perfectly timed destruction. You don't wait around to see the fruits of your labor. The moment the garbage cart is outside the castle walls, you slip away into the deepening twilight. You are now the most wanted man in the province, even if no one knows your name or face. The brewery, your identity as a laborer. Everything is compromised. You have to disappear. But this time, it's different. You're not just moving to a new village or a new town. You are in the heart of enemy territory, with an imminent crisis about to erupt. Your escape route has been planned with the same meticulous detail as the arson itself. You don't head for the main roads. You don't head for the mountains. You head for the river. Water is a shinobi's best friend. It leaves no tracks. It muffles sound, and it carries you away with the current. Before you reach the riverbank, you make one last stop at a pre-arranged dead drop, this one hidden beneath a loose stone in a cemetery wall. Your handler, the foreman, has left you a final package. It's not a weapon or a disguise. It's a tool for a very specific and unusual method of travel. Inside the oilcloth bundle is a small, hollow reed for breathing underweighted belt. That's it. Your escape will not be glorious. It will be submerged. You reach the riverbank just as the first distant shouts and the frantic ringing of a bell cut through the night. The fire has been discovered. Chaos is beginning to bloom behind you. A beautiful, terrible flower you planted yourself. You don't look back. You strip off your laborer's clothes, strap the weighted belt around your waist, and slip into the cold, dark water. This technique is something you practiced years ago, a bizarre and unpleasant skill that you never thought you'd have to use. It's a form of underwater movement, not swimming, but walking along the riverbed. The weighted belt keeps you on the bottom, preventing you from accidentally floating to the surface. The hollow reed, carefully held in your mouth, is your only link to the world of air. You take a deep breath and submerge. The world disappears. The shouts and the ringing bells are replaced by the dull, thrumming silence of the river. It's a profoundly disorienting experience. You are in a world of absolute darkness, feeling your way along the slimy, uneven riverbed, your feet sinking into the mud. Your only sensory input is the feel of the current and the precious, life-giving air passing through the reed. This is the unglamorous reality behind the myth of the water-walking ninja. You aren't walking on water. You are crawling beneath it, like a human crab, in the most uncomfortable and claustrophobic way imaginable. Historians will find references to such underwater infiltration techniques, often involving things like inflatable skins or empty gourds for buoyancy, but the evidence is sparse. Many will dismiss these stories as fantastical exaggerations. But for you, the cold water seeping into your bones and the stale taste of river air in your lungs are very real. You move slowly, deliberately, for what feels like hours. Your lungs burn. Panic is a constant, nagging presence at the edge of your mind. A single misstep, a reed clogged with mud, and it's over. You would simply vanish, your body found weeks later, miles downstream, if it's found at all. Finally, miles south of the castle town, in a secluded bend in the river surrounded by dense forest, you surface. You crawl onto the muddy bank, shivering, exhausted, and gasping for air. You have done it. You have successfully completed the mission and escaped. The chaos you created in Kamiyama is a distant problem now. The Red Pine Festival plot has been thwarted. The enemy lord is dealing with a major internal disaster. The rival clan has been spooked. You have single-handedly altered the course of events without anyone even knowing you were there. You lie on the bank for a long time, the adrenaline slowly draining away, replaced by a bone-deep weariness. This one night has been the culmination of years of work, years of enduring boredom as a farmer, years of feigning friendliness as a merchant, years of back-breaking labor as a brewery worker. It all lead to this, a single act of arson, and a desperate escape through the coal, dark water. The fire was the climax. This is the quiet, lonely resolution. The mission is over. No, all that is left is to disappear completely. The shivering subsides, replaced by the deep, biting cold of the night air on your wet skin. You are out of the water, but you are far from safe. You are a naked, weaponless man in the middle of hostile territory, miles from where anyone thinks you should be. This is the final, most delicate phase of the mission, the exfiltration. It's not about speed. It's about ceasing to exist. Your final dead drop is nearby, the last knot in the long string of your mission. It's not a grand supply cache. It's a hollow log, stuffed with rotting leaves. You reach inside and pull out your last identity. It's the most wretched one yet. A bundle of filthy, tattered dregs that barely constitute clothing. A small, cracked begging bowl, and a small pot of sticky paste made from irritating plant saps. You are to become a HINN, one of the non-people's society. A beggar, and not just any beggar, but one who appears to be afflicted with a contagious disease. You apply the paste to your hands and face, creating the illusion of weeping sores. You don the rags. You are transforming yourself into a creature of pity and disgust, a person that other people actively try not to see. This is the ultimate camouflage. Kenji the farmer was meant to blend in. Soda the merchant was meant to be engaging. This new persona is designed to be repellent. It's a cloak of social invisibility woven from fear. Your journey home is not a triumphant march. It's a slow, agonizing crawl along the margins of the world. You travel the back roads, the forgotten trails. You move with the shuffling, painful gait of a sick man. When you must pass through a village, you keep your head down, hold out your bowl, and mutter pleas for help. People shrink away from you. They toss a coin or a crust of bread from a distance, their faces a mixture of piety and revulsion. The role is degrading, but it is brutally effective. No one looks you in the eye. No one will remember your face. You know that the enemy lord is not a fool. He knows the fire was deliberate. He will have his best trackers out. Included, you suspect, the samurai with the scar. They will be looking for a spy, a capable man, someone moving with purpose. They will not be looking for a diseased beggar shuffling south. Still, you take no chances. One day, you come to a muddy crossroads. This is where you deploy one of the oldest and simplest tricks of your trade. A niche technique for confusing pursuers. You take off your straw sandals, your warage AI, and put them on backwards, the toe thong now behind your heel. You then walk for half a mile down the wrong fork in the road, leaving a clear set of footprints that appear to be heading north. Then, carefully, you walk backwards in your own tracks. Returning to the crossroads, you put your sandals on correctly, untake the true path south. It's a simple deception, but it could buy you a full day as the trackers follow a false trail, arguing about the direction of the footprints. As you get closer to the border of your home province, a new anxiety begins to gnaw at you. Where are you actually going? What is the protocol for a returning agent? This is a point of significant debate among historians of your craft. Did Shinobi clans have established safe houses, a formal debriefing process, and a system for reintegrating agents who had been away for years? Or was the process dangerously informal? Were you simply expected to show up at the edge of your clan's territory and hope the guards recognized you? You've heard chilling stories, whispers from your trainers, of agents returning from long-term missions only to be killed by their own side, mistaken for enemy infiltrators. After all, you have spent years looking, acting, and spelling like the enemy. There is no official Ray entry visa. You finally reach the last landmark, a deep, rocky gorge that marks the natural border of your lord's domain. On the other side is safety, but you cannot simply cross. The beggar must die here. His story must end. You find a spot where the cliff edge is crumbling. You leave the tattered dregs there, along with the cracked begging bowl. You use a stone to make scuff marks on the edge of the cliff. the unmistakable signs of a slip and fall. Any tracker who makes it this far will find the pathetic remains of the diseased beggar and conclude that his miserable life ended here. In a final, clumsy accident, the trail will go cold forever. You wait until nightfall. Then, naked and nameless, you use the kojinawa, the grappling hook and rope you retrieved from your very first dead drop so many years ago, to descend into the gorge and climb the other side. As you pull yourself onto the soil of your home province, you are a true ghost. Kenji is dead. Soda is dead. The brewery worker is gone. The beggar has fallen to his death. Every identity you have ever worn has been shed. You are nothing but the mission's result, a walking repository of a single, vital secret, moving silently through the familiar woods of home. The process of disappearing is complete. You move through the forests of your home province with a speed and confidence you haven't felt in years. The land is familiar. The trees are friends. The fear of being discovered is gone, replaced by a strange, hollow sense of anticipation. You are no longer prey. You are a messenger, returning with a prize. But the question still haunts you. Who will receive it? Your final destination is not your lord's grand castle. It is a small, secluded temple, dedicated to a minor mountain deity, nestled deep in the woods. This is the headquarters, the Jonin's lair, hidden in plain sight under the cloak of religion. As you approach, you don't walk up the main path. You circle it, using your knowledge of the terrain to approach from the rear. Through a dense bamboo grove, you are making your approach as a shinobi, not as a visitor. You give the signal, a specific bird called the cry of a mourning dove, but with one note deliberately off-key. You wait for a long time. There is only silence. The old fear, the fear of being forgotten or abandoned, returns. Then, a voice from the shadows of the temple's porch, calm and low. The persimmons were bitter this year. It's the code phrase from the tavern, from a lifetime ago. Your heart leaps with relief. You step out of the bamboo and reply, your voice cracking with disuse. But the rice harvest will be good. A man steps out of the shadows. He is not your old handler. He is older, his face impassive, his eyes holding a depth you cannot fathom. He is dressed as a simple priest. This must be the Jonin, the high master of your network. He doesn't ask for your name. He doesn't ask about your journey. He simply looks at you. A naked, scarred man who looks more like a wild animal than a trained agent. You have news, he says. It's a statement of fact. You tell him everything. You speak for over an hour, the words pouring out at you. You tell him about the village of Ochiba, the knotted twine, the map in your head. You tell him about Soda the merchant and the secrets on your abacus. You describe the brewery, the capture of your handler, the betrayal, and finally, you tell him about the Red Pine Festival and the fire. You leave nothing out. You are a living report, delivering your data. The Jonin listens without interruption, his expression unchanging. He is a stone wall, absorbing every detail. When you are finished, a heavy silence falls between you. You have done it. You have delivered the message. Your mission, the purpose that has driven you for nearly a decade, is complete. You feel a profound sense of emptiness. What now? This is where the historical record and the romantic myths completely fail. Stories love to tell of a mission's climax, but they never tell you what happens the day after. What do you do with a tool that has served its purpose? What is the retirement plan for a shinobi? The Jonin finally speaks. Your work has saved this clan, he says, his voice flat, without emotion. Your name will be recorded in the secret scrolls. Your family will be provided for. Your lord is grateful. He pauses, but you can never return to your old life. The words hit you with the force of a physical blow. Of course, you know it, but hearing it spoken makes it real. The man you were before you became Kenji is as dead as all the others. You have seen too much. You know too much. You have lived as the enemy for so long that you are now a security risk to your own side. You are a walking archive of your clan's most sensitive intelligence methods. You cannot be allowed to simply go back to being a farmer or a fisherman, where a stray word, spoken in a drunken moment, couldn't do everything. The question of what happened to retired or blown shinobi is a dark and speculative corner of history. Some historians believe they were simply disposed of, a quiet death to ensure their silence. It's a ruthless but logical conclusion. Others propose that they were given new, permanent identities within the clan's territory, kept under watch in remote locations, their skills allowed to atrophy. A few stories suggest they became the trainers for the next generation, passing on their hard-won knowledge in secluded mountain camps. The Jonin seems to read the fear in your eyes. Your service will continue, he says. We have a place for men like you, a place where your knowledge is valued, a place where you can be useful. Until the end of your days, he leads you to a small, isolated compound at the back of the temple grounds. It's a series of simple huts, surrounded by a high wall, a monastery within a monastery. You see other men there. Some are old, their bodies scarred and broken. Some are younger, but their eyes hold the same haunted, distant look that you see in your own reflection. They are the other tools, the other living secrets, put away on a shelf. This is your reward. A life of quiet, monitored obscurity. You will not be celebrated. There will be no parades. Your name will never be spoken outside these walls. The world will never know what you did. Your greatest achievement is that no one knows you achieved anything at all. You have become a ghost in your own home. Your days fall into a new kind of monotony, a quiet, cloistered rhythm that is somehow more profound than the endless labor of the fields. You are given the task of tending the temple's small, immaculate rock garden. You spend your hours raking the fine white gravel into perfect, wave-like patterns around the dark, unmoving stones. It's a meditative, empty task. Your hands, once used from the hoe in the cooper's mallet, grow soft again. The blade over your heart, once kept sharp by constant vigilance, begins to dull. The shinobi is retired. Decades pass. The world outside your monastery walls changes in ways you can only guess at. The endless wars that defined your life have faded into a long, enforced peace under a new shogunate. The great daimyo lords who were once your masters and targets are now tamed, their power curtailed. The demand for men like you, for the skills of espionage and sabotage, has evaporated. You are a relic, a living ghost from a bygone era of violence and intrigue. And then, the stories begin. At first, they are just whispers, brought into your secluded world by a young guard who loves the gossip of the city. He tells tales he's heard in the theaters, stories of incredible shadow warriors, men who can run up walls as if they were flat ground, men who can vanish in a puff of smoke, men who use magical hand gestures to paralyze their enemies. He speaks of them with wide-eyed wonder. He calls them ninja. You listen, a faint, ironic smile playing on your lips. You, the man who spent years covered in mud and filth, whose greatest weapon was a farmer's sickle and whose most brilliant maneuver was getting a cat to walk through a window, are now the subject of heroic fiction. This is the final, most impenetrable layer of your disguise. This is how the legend is born. The primary reason for this transformation is peace. The Edo period, this long peace, has made your reality obsolete and your skills the stuff of fantasy. Storytellers, playwrights for the kabuki stage, and woodblock print artists need new heroes and villains. The samurai, now mostly pen-pushing bureaucrats, have lost some of their dramatic flair. But the shinobi, the mysterious spies from the Age of War, they are a blank canvas, perfect for painting with the most exciting colors. The boring truth is a terrible story, so they invent a better one. This is where all the fantastic elements you've heard about come from. That iconic, all-black suit with the mask. A brilliant theatrical costume, designed to look striking on a dimly lit stage. It's far more dramatic than the dirty peasant rags you actually wore. The straight-bladed ninjutsu, likely an invention of these storytellers, because it looked more exotic and mysterious than a standard. Curved katana, the magical spells and superhuman feats. It's just good theater. And then comes the book. One day, a younger member of your secluded order brings in a copy of a text that is gaining popularity. It's called the Bansenshukai. It is a massive, multi-volume encyclopedia claiming to be a definitive collection of all knowledge related to ninjutsu. This is a truly fascinating and unusual historical artifact. It was compiled long after your time, by men looking back at your profession. They collected everything: genuine survival and infiltration techniques, psychological tricks, weapons manufacturing, and then, right alongside them, sections on divination, magical charms, and wild, unverified stratagems. This book is where historians will forever argue, was it a genuine, scholarly attempt to preserve the fading knowledge of a secret art, or was it an act of deliberate myth-making, collecting every rumor and tall tale to create a romanticized, superhuman image of the shinobi? The truth is likely somewhere in between. The authors probably collected any information they could find, without a modern historian's concern for sourcing or verification. But the effect is profound. The Bansenshukai becomes a Bible for future storytellers. It gives their wildest fantasies a veneer of historical authenticity. You flip through the pages. You see a diagram for a water-walking device made of gourds, and remember the cold misery of crawling along the riverbed. You see complex instructions for making smoke bombs that allow for a magical disappearance, and remember hiding in a cart full of rotting garbage. You see illustrations of a black-clad warrior fighting 10 samurai at once, and remember the terror of being scrutinized by a single man with a scar. You close the book. You are not angry. You are not offended. You feel a strange sense of peace. The legend does not betray your reality. It protects it. The more fantastic the myth of the ninja becomes, the safer the truth of the shinobi remains. No one will ever go looking for the quiet farmer, the gossipy merchant, or the diseased beggar, because they are all looking for the acrobatic assassin on the rooftop. The stories have made your true history disappear, and for a shinobi, to disappear completely is the ultimate success. You pick up your rake and return to the garden, a ghost, forever hidden in plain sight, protected by the shadow of your own legend. The sun has long set outside the temple walls, and the moon casts long, soft shadows through the bamboo. The raking is done for the day, and the white gravel of the garden rests in its perfect, silent waves. You lie on your mat, the day's quiet labor still present in the faint take of your muscles. The story, the memories of Kenjian soda, the sting of the smoke and the cold of the river, they begin to soften and blur at the edges. They are no longer sharp-edged recollections, but watercolors bleeding into one another, fading with each slow, deep breath you take. The air in your own room grows still and quiet now. The hum of the fan, the distant sound of the city, all of it recedes, becoming a gentle, steady drone. The story of the shinobi, with all its patience and its pain, is dissolving. It is becoming part of the quiet hum in the background. A tale that has been told and is now ready to rest. Your own thoughts begin to drift, unmoored from the narrative, floating freely on the slow tide of approaching sleep. The weight of your blanket is a comfort, a gentle anchor in the soft darkness. The journey is over. The mission is complete. All that is left now is the quiet and the deep, welcome peace of the night.